Hey everyone, Jeremy, National Fire Radio. We're back at it in the studio. Rob Ridley sitting to my right, along with a new guest and a friend, somebody that I've gotten to know over the last few years, and it's all because of National Fire Radio and social media is why I've gotten to know this gentleman. Chief Kevin Cowperthwait out of the Christiana, Delaware Fire Department, or Fire Company, I should say, number 12.
Yeah, Fire Company, yep.
Brother, thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. And you got the name right.
I did, right? I was so worried about it. You know, too often when I start thinking about like how to pronounce things, I overthink it and then I just totally butcher it.
Oh, I'm the same way. I have trouble pronouncing a lot of things.
But I've been trying for the whole day today on the way here in the car, and then in between things, I've just been saying your name. So it's like tonight when I say your name in my dreams, my wife's going to be like, "Who's
that clown?
What's going on?"
Who's Kevin?
Kevin. No, it's Cowperthwait. That's all I'm going to say. It's, it's just say it again correctly. Chief, thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
I just want to hit back to what I said in the very beginning. National Fire Radio to me is all about the people I get to meet and the influence that is on me, meaning the people and the influence they have on me makes me better. You're one of those guys, and I know that's kind of probably weird for you to hear, but I'll explain why.
Okay.
Social media is very important to me because I like the upside of it. And there's a lot of bad, obviously, and everybody always focuses on the bad. But I think there's a tremendous value of social media for the fire service, especially today, because that's where most of our members and the people in this industry are paying attention to.
Right.
Christiana Fire Company out of Delaware does it right. You guys are a fire company that is heavily dependent upon your social media influence to bring in and attract some of the best into your fire company. You are the chief of that company. And so what that tells me, even before I got to know you, was there's a command staff there and an operational staff that allows their people to be who they are. And there's a culture there that breeds excellence. And I firmly believe that. And because of that, and seeing that on social media, that got me to your doorstep. And I knocked on the door at Christiana one day. I touched base with you. I've gotten to know you. I've ridden with you once or twice now on some calls and just gotten to know you as a friendly back and forth, a friendly text or a phone call. But I appreciate you, and I appreciate our friendship, and I hope it grows from here. But
Well, thank you.
where I want to start with that, though, is the importance of culture in the fire service and what Christiana means to you.
Christiana means to me was, so I love the fire service. I think everything I've owned, everything I've done in my life, I owe to the fire service. I got involved as as an 18-year-old, and then my jobs I've had, I was because of the fire service. So I just love the fire service, and Christiana was something that I moved at one point because of changes in my life, got involved in there, and had a really great time, and it's just moved, and everything that many of the positive things in my life has been because of Christiana.
Yeah.
And I got into a leadership spot, was able to try a few things that I thought would work, and it's not just me, it's like everybody, it's a whole team, so. Yeah.
So take me back. Before you got to Christiana, Delaware, you're a New Jersey guy, right?
Yep, grew up in New Jersey.
Give me a little backstory about you and how you ended up to where you are today. So let's start at chapter 1.
Went to, grew up in a small town in Pennsville. That's where my dad was. He grew up there. He grew up in Medford as a fireman. And then he moved, after he got out of the Navy, he moved down to Pennsville. And he was always involved in a fire company. So I'm like, 11-year-old, 12-year-old. And I'm going to calls with him because he was a chief then. So he was fire chief from 76 to 83.
Okay.
So I used to go to calls with him in the pickup truck, and just loved it the whole time. So then they had to start a junior program in late 81. So that's how long I've been in, since 1981. And I was able to take calls, become a junior, was in the fire company for 20 years. And then at some point, my wife and I decided it's time to get out of the town, but just taxes kept going up and up and up and up.
Welcome to New Jersey.
Yep. So. But I love Pennsville. We had a great time in Pennsville. And I was chief there for 5, 6 years, and did a lot of fun things there, a lot of great friends there. But as time went on, we moved over to Delaware. I just got out of being chief in Pennsville.
Okay.
So I was done. It was kind of one of those. So what happened was, like a lot of places, the EMS was, we did EMS.
Sure.
And EMS was a problem as far as getting out, and nobody wanted to volunteer to do it.
Just talking about it.
So we started a career service in Pennsville, and I was kind of intimately involved in that because I was the chief. So at the end of that 6 years of being chief, I was kind of done.
You've had enough.
Yeah, you're pushing back. There was a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to do this, we don't need to do that. So we got to the point where, and then my wife and I were talking always about, taxes are never going down here. Everything else is going to, so maybe it was time to leave. So we moved over. I'd worked in Delaware for years. So we moved over to Delaware. I had no intention on joining the fire company, so we built a house. I'm out cutting my lawn.
Time to slow down, right? Yeah,
Yep.
get some personal time back.
Yep. Out cutting my lawn, and one of the guys I know, so I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, some of the things I'm saying, but I was a paramedic in Delaware for several years. So when I worked in Delaware, I used to, we would be with the firehouses all the time. We would take different BLS units, so I knew a lot of the guys over there in Delaware. When I got over there, out cutting the lawn, I see one of these guys. It's like, hey, what are you doing over here? So I was like, I just moved. He's like, why don't you join the fire company? I'm like, nah, I'm good. I mean, I've been, I've just been burnt by that for several years.
I've done my share.
I'm done.
Yeah.
So
you're not getting me.
Well, as time went on, I get involved. I volunteer. I go over there, and they're doing a bunch of calls. And then, the wife's getting on me. It's just like, you're never home like you were in Jersey. You're always there at the firehouse. But as time went on, so I just got involved that way. And as time went on, I became an officer, chief, and then,
talk about the itch, right? That influence as a young kid, right? With your father putting you in the pickup truck and taking you on those calls at 10, 11 years old. I mean, I know what it was for me growing up, but just talk about that a little bit. I mean, do you look back on those days today and think that was really that foundation that really just cemented that love for the job?
Absolutely, yeah. It was just a lot a fun, so I knew all the guys up there. He'd take me up there, during the week or at night or whatever. So I knew everybody. I had a great time up there when I was up there. They would teach me things, so it was just a good foundation. And it's like, this is pretty fun. This is a lot of fun doing this stuff. And then as time went on, you just get to go to calls, and it's like, this is fantastic, and that just grows your love, I think.
I think, it was for a very long time a family business.
Yes.
Most, I grew up in a house I have two brothers, so there's three boys. Mm-hmm. My father was a fireman. And all three of us became firemen because of him and the influence growing up, right? Yep. My one brother has since moved out of the area and didn't pursue it further as a volunteer. My oldest brother is still a volunteer. I still volunteer, and so on. And we're all very passionate about it. I wonder today how often I talk to so many people and they talk about their kids, but I never hear too many people anymore talking about their kids coming into the firehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like their kids are not following in the footsteps of their mother or father in the fire service, or we just had this conversation with somebody earlier that they wanted quote unquote more for their kids.
Yeah.
And I wonder about that because I'm just starting to think about this now as we sat here and you talked about your experiences as a young kid, because I remember how instrumental and influential those were for me.
Right.
And I'm like, why aren't we doing that with our kids today, unless the fire service is not allowing us to give those benefits to our children anymore like we used to. Like I can't just throw my kid in the front seat of the engine with us as we pull out the door.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think of Dan Schultz because his son is very much involved with him.
Yeah.
And this is like, as you're describing, he came to my mind immediately because it's somebody who's got a kid who's following in his father's footsteps, but it was because they were so involved. And you're right, we don't have I don't want to
say across the board. I know a lot of guys that their kids are super involved,
right? And
as young kids, and they promote their children to really fall in love with it like they did, and give them every opportunity to do that. But I'm just look at the guys in my volunteer firehouse and how many of their kids are following in their footsteps of being a volunteer fireman, and it's not many people anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So
I have one of two. So one of my sons loves it.
Yeah.
He went down to school in Tennessee, so he just got out of there because it was all career rounding, couldn't volunteer.
Yeah, right.
But he loves it. My other son, really doesn't have anything to do with it.
Right.
And it's not negative against it. Just
right, absolutely.
He loves the thrill of doing, like he does like bungee jumping, all kind of crazy things that I would never do. But he loves the thrill. Like I get that same thrill doing the fire stuff. But
same here.
But he just doesn't enjoy it, doesn't want to do it.
I want to explore that further, Rob. I think that's a great topic to look at a little bit further, but I just look at how influential it was for me, and I literally look at everything in my life and base it around the fire service at some point.
Yeah.
Any experience I have or friendships I have or influences I have or how I make decisions and judge situations really circles back to everything the firehouse taught me in a way.
Yeah.
I think so. At least it's a lifestyle.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
And it's so, I just think it's fantastic with, you're helping people, you're giving your time to a worthy cause. It's just, I'm content, very content doing it. And I don't know if, I've heard other people say that. It's like, oh, more for my kids. It's like, well, is more making, $150,000 a year living in a mansion? I don't know, but I love doing what I'm doing. I'm very content. I'm not poor, so I'm not searching for each meal. So it's not, there's that pushback there a little bit. It's just like, I'm not a bum or anything, meaning I'm not making any money and I'm taking care of my family. But, there is something to be said for, I'm helping people. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm content as opposed to.
There are people crying into Ferraris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a real conversation.
Yeah.
100%. Chief, real quick, just a question about your dad, like with him being chief and everything, and you mentioned that he was in the Navy. What did he do in the Navy? Do you know?
He was on a destroyer in the engine room.
Okay.
Yeah. He was, so he's hilarious when he gets going on stuff. He's 90, he'll be 95.
Should have brought him with you.
Yeah. He's not a good traveler. We've taken him a few places.
Yeah.
Doesn't like to travel now at his age. But anyway, so he was, he grew up in Medford, New Jersey. His father and his grandfather were firemen there. And it was a little different story. It was a small town back then. They blow the siren and, everybody comes up and helps out kind of thing. But so he was involved in that. And then says when he went to high school, they were training for war. So he goes, I didn't learn anything. All they did was like me. We did exercises and learned how to hold guns and all that kind of stuff, which I don't know if that's a little exaggerated or not, but whatever.
Makes for a good story.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but so he got out of high school in August of 45. So the World War II was just winding down.
Yeah.
So he worked around the little town in Medford for a little while, and then he joined the Navy, and then he got in Korea started while I was in the Navy. So he was in the Navy. Sailing the Mediterranean while the Korean War was going on. So he was happy not to be in the Army, he said.
Yeah. Well, that's. I asked the question just because I've been starting to draw these parallels of the American Fire Service and how much we were like our foundation comes from shipboard firefighting from those war years in World War II, and how many of our veterans, especially from the Navy, came out and came home and then started their, being active in the volunteer fire service, and everybody in that at that point was damage control was
right.
everybody's responsibility. So it's just sorry for the I just was curious to see because
that's fine.
So, all right. So you're mowing your lawn. Christiana guy comes by, says, "Why don't you join?" You're like, "Okay, we'll think about it."
Right.
But that itch from when you were that 10, 11-year-old kid in the front seat of your dad's pickup truck kicked in.
Right.
You missed it.
Right. Well, I like being a fireman. It was like being a chief was a pain in the neck.
I get it.
I like being a fireman.
Yeah, let's talk about the transition now. I mean, then, like you said, it's a pain in the neck. Like, what's
well, it's just all So, so the New Jersey side of it, not necessarily the Christiana side, but the New Jersey side of it is dealing with politicians. So there was a town council, 5 people. You have to deal with the mayor, the public safety guy.
Problems.
Right. In our town, I don't know if it was this way up here, but in our town, it was 2 fire companies shooting for the same budget. So in the township, there was 2 fire companies. Both of them are stabbing each other in the neck every day about, I need this, I need this. They don't need that, and you get to the point where it's just like, so now I'm fighting the town, plus I'm fighting the other fire chief, trying to get my share of the pie.
And it's volunteer.
And it's volunteer.
Like I'm doing this out of my own goodwill to give back to my community, and all I got to deal with is stress.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of the downfall of the volunteer fire service.
It is. Yeah.
Is, we have enough time being spent in the volunteer area where calls and training and required meetings and trainings and things like that occupy enough time. But to then take the next step to become an administrative position, because truly the fire chief, he runs the fire and the volunteer fire service, but he's the guy doing all the nonsense in the backyard, right?
So you're doing all the budget.
Yeah.
You're taking the purchase orders up to town hall, make sure they're getting paid. You're making sure everything's, working and all that type of thing.
It's a thankless job.
Yeah. And then, so then you're at I was at some, this is one of the things that kind of did it for me other than the EMS thing, but I'm at some meeting and I miss a working fire because I'm at some meeting. And it's like one of those, am I here to do meetings and budgets, or am I here being a fireman?
There's something wrong with this picture.
So, and we were only doing, 300, 400 calls a year. Not that's, that's still like one a day. I mean, so that's,
absolutely.
still taking your time. And it's different in the fact that, like, when I'm at home at Christiana, I'm not necessarily getting up for a fire alarm because crews are handling that. They're in-house. Right. But at Pennsville, I am. I'm getting up, taking my vehicle, I'm driving to the firehouse, which just takes more time.
Just had this conversation with you.
So it's difficult.
I think it's a great conversation to have, though, because like and I really want to just go down this into the weeds for a little bit. You mentioned that you had an EMS issue that you guys were dealing with in Pennsville, and then you started so you hired some career
Yeah,
staffing.
ended up hiring eight folks.
But like that, I mean, that's a huge step in, I don't want to say right direction, wrong direction, but it's a step in finding a solution.
A direction.
Yeah.
And like kind of talk about that, because I think there's a lot of people out there who are going to struggle with this in the fire service, especially when it comes to, because EMS is, whether you're either in it or you're out of it, but if you're in it, you got to be providing it somehow. And nowadays, if you're not providing it, there's not going to be, like in New York State, we don't have the commercial providers to give us that service. So this ostrich, put your head in the sand and say, no, somebody else will take care of it. That's not going to happen.
Yep. Well, part of the rub where I was so anybody in the firehouse. So if you're in the fire station in Pennsville, tones went off, you had to go. You were forced to go by our rules, not by a township rule. But we just said, hey, we're here to provide a service, and I kept giving the township warnings of, hey, we're forcing them to go, but this dog is only going to hunt for so many years.
Yeah.
You just can't keep doing this and thinking it's going
Right.
to be okay. So, typically in the politician realm, it's like, well, as long as it's getting done, I could care less.
Yep.
I don't care if I'm screwing you guys over. Who cares?
Exactly.
Heard that before.
So it keeps going, for 2 or 3 years, and I keep warning them, hey, at some point we're going to stop. So then I gave them the old 6-month warning of, in 6 months, I'm going to stop this rule. I'm just tired of forcing the guys to go. It's starting to hurt the fire service or the fire side of the equation too, because they're not hanging out at the firehouse. Like if you're forcing me to take calls when ambulances calls I don't want to go on, I just won't be there.
Right.
Problem solved for me.
Right.
So I kept going and kept going. When I did the drop dead data of, and they didn't believe me, obviously, because they didn't do anything. And then it was like, you're waiting for ambulances for a half an hour. People from other towns were coming in from long ways away trying to, cover our ambulance calls. So then, of course, you get the phone call of like, hey, what's going on? Or, nobody's coming. It's like, I told you.
Yeah.
So that kind of led. Now, it didn't go the way I wanted it to go as far as I envisioned the guys crossing the floor, being firemen and EMS. The town didn't envision it that way. They wanted just EMS. And I got to the point where, okay, you're going to do it, then it'll go your way. Obviously, you're paying the bill.
Your way, I can't be a part of it.
Yeah. So, and that's when it kind of,
I get it.
They got hired. I stayed for like 6 months after they were hired, and I kind of faded away. So,
Got it.
Yeah. But
Got it.
that's how we solved the problem now. There's that area is doing some privatization, so they got some companies from the outside coming in. I wasn't really in favor of that, thinking that, you're having somebody from another organization in your firehouse. So, when they back into a door, whose problem is it? If they, whatever, something breaks or somebody's accused of stealing something or whatever the case may be,
Got it.
whose finger are we pointing? If they're working for the town, I know they're our employees, and
Yeah, I was
we
going
can
to say,
solve those
they are
problems.
now your resource too.
Right.
Like they don't ever have to be in jeopardy of being farmed out to somebody else.
Right.
Or, like I always think that sometimes when you get to that private EMS resource, it's a game of 3-card monte, and they're just shuffling the resources around
Yep.
until it hits. So it's,
Yep.
yeah.
But EMS is a big problem in the United States, I think. I mean, it's just,
I couldn't agree with you more. I
Who's
mean,
covering it,
where I'm located right now, it's a massive problem, and it's the game of let's pretend it's not a problem. And unfortunately, it's really starting to show its face now, where they used to be able to hide it. It's not being hit as much anymore. COVID did one interesting thing, though, when we talk in the world of EMS providing. In our area, the overwhelming response for COVID calls required the hospitals to put paid ambulances on the road, which we never had before.
oh, wow.
In New Jersey, where we are, ALS service, paramedic service is provided
Hospital-based,
by the
right?
hospital. It's
Yep.
hospital-driven. It's not private organization. It's not municipality. It is hospital-run, so it's private. What they saw was with COVID was a lot of volunteer ambulance corps were overburdened with responses. Some didn't even want to respond to COVID calls because
Right.
we're volunteer. We can't crazy mindset, but that was actually a thing.
Right.
And so on. So the hospitals and the privatization stepped up, and they started putting career ambulances on the road. In fact, there's one stationed right here where we're sitting, out in the next building over, and they're hospital run, and they're for profit, and they back up the volunteer services now. And what's crazy is now at least we're getting in a step in the right direction to have 24-hour transport available. But the problem is they're being overtaxed now too, because the volunteers know that there's an paid bus here now.
Right.
So it's like, all right, if we don't get out, it's not that bad anymore.
Right.
We'll just pretend we still don't have a problem. But the problem is now these buses are running nonstop.
Yep.
And so it's this ongoing battle. But EMS in general, I think, at least in our area, needs a massive overhaul. But I think nobody wants to touch it.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Yeah.
That's scary.
But I think they're always going to go path of least resistance.
Well,
Anybody that has the
Right.
control, So,
right.
yeah,
Absolutely. So, I mean, okay.
So we get to Pennsville, yeah. and
Let's
we-
get out of New
Yeah.
Jersey, Rob.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get out of New Jersey. You keep bringing us back. Let's get out of New Jersey. I want to get to Delaware, right?
Right.
They picked him off his front lawn and made him join. He had the itch. He wanted to get back.
Forced him.
Forced him
Forced me,
back. I
yeah.
can tell, right?
Yeah.
Kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
There's a van
So-
in the hood.
What-
Kidnapped him.
Christiana, you had made a comment before about explosive growth there, right? So when
Yeah.
you joined, looking at my notes, you said you joined in.
I joined years ago because I moved over for a job. So I had it's kind of a strange, from when you come from the New Jersey area, the way they do membership as opposed to, and I have some knowledge about New York just from Chief Lombardo and Chief Pressler and all
Yeah.
the way they do things. But Delaware's unique in that you can join, pay dues, and really not do anything, but you're a member. So I was a member from, I think, 87. I moved over for a year before I got married, trying to get a job in Delaware. And when I was over there, I joined. And then I moved back to Jersey when I got married because the housing was cheaper. So
Imagine that, right?
Yeah, it was,
Like,
yeah.
What?
yeah, it was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. And so I lost my place there real quick.
No, so you joined in 87.
Oh, I joined in '87, so I was a member paying dues.
Right.
And then when he came, hey, you want to join again? It was kind of like I got involved, and they're like, oh, you're already a member, you're fine. Start riding. So I was like, okay. So that's how I was a member there already. So
Got
I was
it.
kind of already a member.
So in 2002, you became an active riding member.
Right.
At least, yeah, that's what the
Right.
notes say, right? So 2002. What was it like then? Because I know the Christiana of today, but what was it?
Yeah, then it
20
was
years
more
ago?
people coming from home.
So it was a home response
Right.
department.
3 fire stations, which we still have 3 today. We just don't actively staff all of them. So 3 fire stations, guys that lived in the area coming from home. Maybe 2 career ambulances. They had a part-time ambulance. They were paying people part-time to work on the ambulance, and they had a full-time ambulance. So there was 8 full-time guys there, and 4 platoon system. And they would just take ambulance calls if there was a fire. The full-time guys were allowed to get on the apparatus, but they had to wait for guys to come from home. But if nobody came from home, they would go with 2. Each ambulance had a hearse tool on it, so if they got to an accident and nobody came, then they would just make the cut themselves. And it was come from home. So it was more kind of like New Jersey and Pennsville that I came from in that way, but it was just Christiana. And there was a ton of calls. That's why I have some respect for these companies that, if you have 1,000 calls or 1,200 calls coming from home, oh my, that's that's hard.
I absolutely get
How do
it.
you cover that amount of
Yeah.
runs from home?
We said that last week. We talked about that 700 and 750
Yeah, there's that,
threshold.
you're right, that break off point where 6 or 7 or 8, and then you get to the point where it's just like, well, I can't have people in the firehouse all the time. There's not enough calls. You'd just be sitting there all day and nothing would happen.
Right.
Or I get to the point where I'm having people come from home, but come from home or 6 or 8 or 1,000 calls. That's
Yeah.
that's taxing.
It does become taxing, and it becomes even more taxing when you ask more of your people because you don't have the numbers of guys you used to have.
Right.
Like, I feel obligated now more than ever that if I don't get up out of bed and go, there's a potential the engine's not going to get on the road.
Yeah. And who's covering that fire alarm at 2 a.m?
That's right.
You know,
I'm coming
and
from
they're-
home.
Right, and you're getting up for work the next day.
Yep. And there's some nights where you go out 2-3 times.
Right.
And that's just in my department. It's just strictly fire calls. It's not even EMS. I couldn't even imagine. The EMS does over 1,000 runs a year in my town. And it's 100% volunteer.
Right.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Couldn't imagine. We're doing, I think, 600-700 fire runs.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
that's.
then the paperwork.
I wanna get-
restocking ambulance.
Listen, I want to get back to the
Stocking
days
apparatus.
of like 200 fire calls a year and 150 of them are fires. That's what I want.
Yeah. I don't know if that exists, but
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, for you guys, I mean, so, all right. So,
So, go ahead.
2002. So you get back in and you're like, all right, this is cool. Back at it. Enjoying it. Riding the back step.
Right.
Going to fires?
Yeah. Yep. They're
But
going
it
to fires.
wasn't as populated as it is today, right? So Delaware saw growth.
Yeah. I think
area.
it grew. Our area grew probably in the 80s, 90s, and it's still growing today, but it grew in the 2000s. So there was a good solid 30 or 40 years of increased population.
When did the alarms start to increase to the point where, because there was this, this transition that happened in Christiana where, like, the home response wasn't going to cut it anymore,
Right.
and how, because
To
that
the point where you couldn't get to the fire. Even today, if I wanted to have the guys do home response, it would be impossible. They would never get there.
Right.
There's just too much traffic, too many lights. It would take them 15 minutes to get to the firehouse, you know. So, yeah, so that's when we transitioned to having people in the station. But back in the 80s, they were probably doing 800 runs, 900 runs around in there. It was steady.
Yeah.
And then it really picked up as time went on. You know, we're just over 4,000 now, fire runs.
So you're doing 4,000. So I guess this is a good point to talk about today's Christiana Fire Company, right? Because it is quite different.
Yeah, it transitioned probably 12 around in there years ago, where we started having, we dedicated having one fire crew in the station. We hired some more EMS staff. We had a full-time, is why we hired more full-time, more part-time. And it's just time as went on, we've just increased that number of full-time, increased the number of part-time, and gotten volunteers that are in the house. And we're staffing Apparatus in the house. Nobody's leaving, nobody's coming from home.
Right. So home response is no longer. You have career staff in now. So how many ambulance you do EMS still as well?
Yeah,
so
we have ambulance is our backbone because of money.
Yeah,
we
billing.
get ambulance billing. Yeah, that's most of our budget.
And how many buses do you have now?
4 up during the day till midnight. And
Fully
then,
staffed, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Weekends it goes down to 3.
And they're staffed by full-time and per diem, or is it?
Mostly part-time, and there's 8 full-time.
So the 4,000 fire runs is not including the EMS responses.
No, EMS is a ton more. Almost 12,000 EMS runs.
Okay.
Rob's
like
doing,
11.
did you see Rob's brain is starting to spin? He's like trying to do math on his notepad over there.
It's like
wait a minute.
11,800, 11,900.
You know, yeah,
I don't know.
It's wild. I mean, if you think
It happens a lot.
I will. It happens a lot. Listen, the times that I've been there, it's nonstop. It's nonstop. You don't really see the ambulances. They're rarely.
Yeah,
in
they do a
quarters.
tremendous job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly ladies that work there, but they do a tremendous job. It's tons of work.
And
And
then
it's if you love EMS, we see a lot of cool stuff. You know, you hate to say cool stuff, but it's kind of like shooting,
Well,
stabbings,
yeah, I mean, I think that's
accidents, people hit.
There's something there though, because I think that on this issue of EMS, we're burned out from calls that are not. Like we're cross-staffing where I work, so we have 2 guys are on the ambulance and they're cross-staffing a ladder truck, and they're going out on calls and they can't even say, "Oh man, like I missed that fire, but you know what? Like I saved a little baby's life." Or no, it's like we had another mental health transport to the hospital, or we had another person, something ridiculous.
Right. Lab
And
values.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
So,
Speaking our language.
and then career staff for fire. What do you staff for?
They can do both, but it depends on where we are. So if we have a down staff and they could move to the ambulance, it's not typically they do, but sometimes they do. 5 on a shift, so 20 guys.
Okay. Okay.
And then a career assistant chief, full-time mechanic, full-time administrator.
Okay. And then
So it's like 31 full-time people.
And
total.
then the volunteer ranks. How do you know what the number is on that?
I was trying to do that today. I think 70 or 80 around in there.
Active.
Yeah.
Which
is like relative. Some guys are there all the time. Some guys are
Right.
come in once every 3 weeks or so and give 2 days or something.
Yep. Which I think is a unique program that I really want to dive into, because Christiana to me seems like one of those sought after places where if you want to go to work, you want to go to fires, you want to go to recs, you want to get experience, you can do that there. It's a place that provides you the opportunity to better and hone your skills, I would think.
We try.
Yeah, but I mean that in all seriousness, right?
No, that's one of the things. It's just like we try to have it so it's exciting. You're getting to do some cool stuff, and that's what I think attracts people.
Yeah. So how did that transition work? Were you a part of the transition from realizing like, okay, this is we're trending in a very busy way with the acceleration of growth here. Our call volume is doubling, tripling. Like we're going to need more resources. How was that process? And
It was a slow process. Like people look at it today and think, it's just like some of the younger guys that come in. It's just like, wow, you got all these. It's just like, yeah, well, this didn't happen overnight. This was a 10-year process of moving things, and doing things. But so we chief change. We had a chief change. So the new chief got in, not me, and did a few good things as far as they had a membership requirement. You had to live in district. So they dropped that.
Okay.
When they dropped that, people started coming in, and then we just made it to we had like a associate member type of thing. You come in and ride, but you weren't a real member. You're an associate member. Then we dropped that to like just you're a member. If you're here riding, you're a member. And then we just kind of changed the mindset. It's okay to come in for 24 hours, once every 3 weeks, and hang out for 24 hours. Then you go. So we changed that mindset, and then as time went on, we've just gained membership. got the rules structured a little bit as far as, what's required to be here, what you're required to do to ride and that type of thing. But, that's just been the evolution of doing it.
How hard was it to create a new culture? I mean, you have a whole new set of rules. You're rewriting the game.
I mean,
right?
just making the fire department transitional so you can get people in to become members is like that.
Yeah.
It takes really proactive thinking. And
Well, it's guys that want to go to fires. So that's what you have a target of who you want to try to attract. So that's, hey, we got a fires. We go to lots of runs. Come down and we'll help you out. And that's our goal. And then a side goal that's been lately has been maybe the past 2 or 3 years is we have enough guys that work in different places. If you want to come down as a young person and try to be a career fireman, we can probably get you in somewhere. We can lead you down that path. I don't know if we can get you in. We don't have that kind of influence. We're not a mayor or something. But
ultimately, though, you're going to be in that driver's seat.
We can walk you down the path
Yeah.
because there's enough people that work in enough major departments and enough other departments that can help you out and help you start your career as a fireman. So there's another kind of like carrot we're dangling.
I'm really impressed with the mindset, though, because too often we get caught up on the tradition of how we've done things in the fire service.
Yeah.
I think that's one of our Achilles heel of the fire service.
Well, we really changed the fact that our goal here is to get Apparatus on the street quickly as possible and do a fantastic job.
You're putting the residents first.
Right. That was our whole goal. Is like, how can we, because we're not doing a good job now. We recognize that. We had so one of the things that happened was we had a car accident. This was back when we were kind of still doing come from home. Car accident. The ambulance gets there. They're trying to cut the guy out. It's like a guy and a gal trapped in a car. We fail as the Apparatus. We had like one guy at the firehouse that couldn't drive, or no, it was 2 people at the firehouse. Nobody could drive. So the rescue engine's sitting in the station, they can't go. Next new company comes, they driver only. Next new company comes, they finally come up with like 2 guys. And it was like, it took these people like 40 or 50 minutes to get cut out of the car. It was like, this is embarrassing. This is unacceptable.
Yeah.
So it was one of those transitional things where this can never happen again. And just moving that evolution as far as we need to change and make things.
And the fact that it didn't get swept under the carpet.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's the thing. Like, I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, how many times do we know that this has happened where we have heard stories or witnessed it and nobody's taken any steps to actually make sure this doesn't happen? It's just like, this is a one-off, and then it happens 6 months later.
But this is what I'm saying is they recognize that, and they're willing to recognize that and then address the issue.
Who tucked the ego into the drawer to make sure that conversation could happen?
Yeah, I think when we I took over from another. So the chief, I said we made a chief change.
Yeah.
And when that guy got in power, he started making changes, and then we just kept going and going and going and going. Another chief took over. I was deputy under both of them, but I was deputy under operations under the second chief. And we just kept making changes. Guys started dedicating time. Like,
was there any pushback or resentment from?
Oh yeah, there was always resentment, pushback. We're screwing things up, and but we just kept going to one foot in front of the other and kept going. Yeah. And
I can't imagine that as you're doing this, especially in the infancy of this, and as the plan is moving forward. In quotes, like, how were you tracking the progress? Because I know how we talk about the positive in the fire service, but I know how toxic the fire service can be. And if you have a room full of haters who are making the loudest amount of noise about this, you had to have a point where you were like, no, this is actually working. The citizens are getting fire response. Ambulances are going. The fire trucks are going. These are all good things. Like,
I think it's all result driven. They're saying like, what we were doing isn't really working. I know we're yelling about it, but it really wasn't working. What we're doing is kind of working. And we're just going to keep going. So that's kind of what happened.
And I have to think too. At some point, other districts around you were taking note of what you guys were doing and saying, "Wait a minute! Like, it seems to be working. These guys are getting on the street. They're getting on the street fast. They got staffed apparatus, right?" And that starts to then people start looking around and going, "Wait a minute! They might have the answer." I have to think though that there's some success stories there that fueled your growth of saying, "We're doing the right thing. We need to keep pushing forward."
Yeah.
That's
we
cool.
made 1 year, or maybe it was like over a 2 year period. We made like 2 or 3 grabs, and it was one of those. This is working. We're pulling people out of buildings. So that was a real rewarding thing.
That's cool. That's what it's all about right there. That sums it up. So how did then? Okay, so all the rule changes. With rule changes come conflict, like we talked about, trying to find resolution to that. But then there's also that culture shift that has to come with it, right?
Right.
You said something before that I think was the quote of this whole episode, and it's going to be, is we like going to fires. We want guys that want to go to fires because we can give you, I want to go back and listen to the exact quote, but it was in regards to, we want people that go to fires.
Yeah.
We want people that want to go to fires.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what your culture is today. I mean, people join Christiana. You guys advertise how I started this whole podcast about social media. There's a reason why you have a great social media presence. It's because you do a lot of work, and it's a place where guys can go to work. Mm-hmm. That's exciting.
Yep.
That's great. How does it work though, culture-wise? Because I could only imagine the conversation I would have with people when I said, "Yeah, well, let's open up our membership and let guys come in whenever they want." That's got to be challenging.
Yeah,
it was at least.
It was challenging, and it was, there's some of obviously the politics behind it of voting too. Hey, who can vote?
Right. Because you still have that company side? Like,
yeah, there's still the company side.
There is.
Like there's elections and all that kind of stuff, so it's just trying to get, enough, so there's the calculation of, can this guy vote? Can this guy vote? But all that, there's that kind of thing going on too, behind the scenes. But we just kept moving forward and kept getting it done. The right people were getting elected, had the right motives, so it's never a chief. It's always, 5 to 8, 12 guys that are moving in the same direction and want to do the same thing.
Right.
And that was the key to the whole thing.
So I think part of the success of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are, you just don't accept anyone. You do ride-along programs first.
So the ride-along's kind of new.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say new, it's like, a year or two old.
Well, maybe just talk about the process a little bit about how you become a member, because I think that has a big part of how you weed out ones that just don't fit that mold or can do what you need.
Hypothetically, Jeremy Donch wants to join. Let's say use him as the example.
We can get into that later, but let's go.
No, we're bringing a lot of guys in, and then so we're doing these things called recruit classes. So it's like 20 or 25 guys that join, or gals. I use guys generically.
Same here.
But it's 20 some people to join, and then we would retain 5, 4, 3. And it was like, do they really not enjoy here? But so they would come down, like they want to go to fires, then they would get involved in a place like, this really isn't the fit for me. I don't like the way that things are going. So then we started doing these ride-alongs. So, hey, do 3 ride-alongs with us. That way you kind of see the culture. You kind of get the expectation of how it's going to go every day. You kind of see the people. Is this some place that you would enjoy being, or is this some place that you don't?
It's also the tempo.
And if you don't, fine. That's fine. And then we're not wasting your time. You're not wasting our time.
Right.
You're never done. So then we started doing the 3 ride-alongs. So once they do the 3 ride-alongs, so they submit an application, say, hey, I want to join. And then we say, okay, schedule a ride-along. So they schedule the 3 ride-alongs. Once they're done the ride-alongs, then they get the formal application to put into the company to join. Then after they're accepted to join, we do a recruit school, which is a 3-day program, 1 night, 2 days, of just training. This is how we stretch lines. This is how we do searching. This is how we throw ladders, just that kind of basic stuff. And everything we do is kind of based on riding positions. So then they get assigned a riding position. This is how much you can do as far as, I sort of explain it correctly, but so like the engine has a nozzle backup, the truck has bar, OV. So no guy's getting signed off on OV because that's kind of operates on their own. But you would be given, okay, you've done well enough in recruit school, you're going to be on the bar and you can ride nozzle and you can ride backup. So then they just kind of progress that way. So they're kind of plugged into the system. The responsibility is pretty clear cut of, as the nozzleman, this is what you will do, this is what you will bring. So then as you do that well, then you can kind of keep moving up.
Yeah,
so it's kind of progression that way.
Absolutely, makes sense.
So then, it's just a matter of putting in time. The more you're here, the better you'll do. And a lot of guys do it.
Consistency and expectations up front.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because I think there's so many members in the fire service who fail because they're worried about putting consistency and expectations out there and holding people accountable to them. But yet here you are doing that and you're finding success.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very, I didn't talk a lot about it, but we're very riding position driven. So every vehicle, every truck, every engine has a riding spot. And you go to that riding spot, it's all pre-designed what you'll do, what tools you'll take, and what your job duties are. So then people are just looking at people to excel at that. So the company officers are just looking for these guys that come in, and you're riding the bar tonight, I want you to excel at doing the bar.
Yeah.
And then, that's how you're measured. And then once you get the bar down, okay, now you're going to move on to OV, or you're going to move on to hook, or you're going to move on the roof. So we just have different spots, and we just keep moving. That's your kind of, you're working your way up in the department.
I love that. I think we need a lot more of that. But I think what Rob was saying too, though, is just, when we put out our level of expectation and we expect performance and we expect proficiency and people are held accountable, because when you lay out your level of expectation, there's now self-accountability on each person.
Yep.
They have to meet your expectations because that's the minimum. The expectation is the minimum.
Yep.
Right?
And that's kind of, and the minimum really kind of is put your mask on fast. Here's how to put your mask on, get your gear on fast. That's the minimum. Then we start with skills and
Got
go
it.
for over there. So
Yeah. I know you attract a lot of guys that already have experience.
Yes.
Do you attract new firefighters?
Yeah. Yep.
Like no training at all, come in?
Some no training. I mean, I'd say 10% no training, maybe even 5. Most of them have training, but with a lot of younger guys, a lot of 18, 20-year-olds that just love the fire service and want to be involved.
Yeah.
And we try to, get them involved and help them out as much as we can.
That's great. Well, you certainly have the institution that can certainly teach and train them.
Yeah. And we get a lot of guys getting higher places, We get guys, or guy Memphis, guy, do you know Harris?
No. Maybe. I don't.
So he's in Memphis, guys in Philly,
Rob, I'll tell you this: the couple times that I've been there, and the guys, I mean, I absolutely everywhere I go, I introduce myself to everybody, just because you should always know who you're talking to, and so I always introduce guys. But it's amazing how many guys there were on their days off from their real job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many career firemen ride there to go to fires?
Yeah. I know it's a two-hatter thing.
I
And
get
the
it.
guys on the career side are kind of
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? But
Yeah.
our guys love it, and
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I went to PG County originally to see what a consolidated system was like, because Spitzer wanted to make that New York become that. But then I had an amazing experience with motivated individuals, and at the time, like, my boss in the fire service was not doing anything to, we were an ambulance service that also had fire trucks. That's how I would describe the culture at that time. We've thankfully been able to change it now, but like, I was going down to Hyattsville to catch fires, and I had really, really good luck for a while.
Yeah.
And even when it wasn't, if we weren't going to a fire, just the aspect, and I think you can kind of relate to this, of going to report a smoke in the building and pulling a line on that, and everybody performing the function of the job. Whereas, I mean, how many times do we see in the country, oh yeah, odor of smoke or smoke in the structure, or, kitchen fire reported out, and people are investigating it and they're just not taking any proactive steps, maybe is the best way to say it.
Right.
But like,
We just say everything's something until we say it's nothing.
right. And to put cotton in the street and to pull a line and to, like, man, that was just so formative, and it started to hone my skills as a firefighter, because now, I use Hyattsville as the example. Like, I worked for a whole day on all of those positions on the engine, of being the line, being the backup, being layout, and hallway, and like, man, like, it was just such, because that's in firefighter 1, we don't actually teach anybody how to use a fire nozzle, or a nozzle and a fire hose, like, and to just go into the details on all those, and then to move up to the truck and to do, like you said, the bar, the OV position, like ladders. They have a ladders position in Hyattsville. So just to get into the craft of throwing ground ladders and the culture behind it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it truly made me, like I talk about it when I interviewed for lieutenant. I was like, this is the thing that has made me a good firefighter. Like, I am going to be a good candidate as an officer because I have got to actually watch officers work, and they are much, much younger than me.
Yeah.
And there's no way that you would ever look at these people and be like, oh, well, you should promote them based on looks because they're so young. But I got to see the right way of doing things for once, and that's, I think that's that's what I'm picking up that you're doing in Christiana, which is amazing.
It's proficiency, and you're allowing your people to work.
If you do it,
people to operate.
Right. We just want firemen to be firemen. They love doing it. So why don't I let them? Like, we're doing a practice for.
It sounds so simple.
Well, we're doing, if we get a box, we call a box, so like a structural fire.
Yep.
We're laying a line, we're going to stretch a line, they're going to do the things they're going to do, and they get to practice at it. It's just like it's practice of going to a fire but not really being on fire. It's kind of game speed. It's kind of preseason,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What? Talk to me about the culture there at Christiana, right? I mean, I know everybody there, we like going to fires. We like going to rec. We like being tested. It's your personal growth. It's also the growth of the company. Mm-hmm. The 12 for Christiana signifies something very important, correct? On your helmet shield, right? So we're talking about your membership. They do 3 ride-alongs. They come through your orientation program.
Right.
They get assigned. They come down. They can ride every so often. Come down as much or as little.
Come down as much as they want. There's the riding board. Then they get put on the riding board by the officer. Hey, you're riding, wherever today, whatever spot.
Right.
And then when you first come into company, you have a blank front shield. It just says Christiana on the bottom, but there's no 12 on it. And the 12 is our station number. As time goes on, you prove yourself as, like, I'm doing the right things. We have a rookie book, so they have to do the rookie book. They have to, like, put time in when they're doing on the apparatus. They're doing the right thing. They're taking care. They're doing their morning checks. When they're doing everything right, as time goes on, they've made a commitment to the department, we'll give them our 12. So it's just one of those, hey, I've came into the department, I'm doing the right things, I'm trying to learn, and I'm moving and improving, and then you're part of the organization, here's a 12. So it's just something to earn, to say that you're doing the right things and you're moving forward.
It's a big proud moment, though. It's
Yeah,
pride,
yeah.
right? I mean, to earn the number on your shield,
Yeah.
I think for the individual is that piece of mind that you've worked hard and you deserve that,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
not an 8th place trophy. This
Right.
is a 1st place trophy
Right.
because we want you
Right.
here.
Well,
Yeah.
and also I think sometimes people, there's like a couple things that come to mind. Like sometimes people confuse like discipline and accountability, and like you are trying to help people get to that 12. It's not like, 'cause I think I've seen times in the fire service. I mean, I was a member of a department once that wouldn't let me drive any apparatus, and I was I'd been a career firefighter for I think 12 years at that point. Like, and they're like, well, you've got to go through our and I was like, okay, then take me through the qualifications.
Right.
And then you get stonewalled, and it was more of a punishment than it was
Right.
to get you someplace. But here, it's a qualification, and it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the company is trying to get you there, because the more 12s that are on that wall, the better off the company's going to be.
Yep. Yep. And we just feel it's like something, it's always, you're always working. So you're working in that riding spot. Your next, we even do it with our company officers, so that when a company officer gets promoted to a lieutenant or captain, they have a blank white shield.
Oh, no kidding.
And same thing, they earn their numbers too.
How does
By doing
Yeah.
doing the things we want you done. It's even the little things. Are you doing your chores every day? Is the hallway getting mopped every day? We have a schedule as far as what's supposed to get done every day. So these things getting done. People aren't seeing you sitting around. People aren't watching you sit and watch TV. You're productive member of the department.
So for you, as a forward momentum for you, joining, getting active, and then starting to work your way up through the ranks, and then being a part of a lot of this cultural change, operational change, cultural change. For you now, in the position you're in today, many years later, and you're the chief of this department, what does that mean to you? Like when you walk the bay, or you walk in and you...
I just enjoy seeing the guys succeed. I mean, really, it's not about me. It's just.
I get
watching-
that. Right, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean,
Somebody gets hired at a career department they want to get hired at. That's a win for me. I'm happy. Plus we're getting the job done. We're succeeding on the fire ground. I don't want to see fire grounds going sideways. I don't want to see accidents going sideways. And we're correcting things. Of course, we're going to make mistakes doing stuff. But I want to see that moving forward all the time. And we're just moving forward as a department, doing the right thing, doing the job right. We have certain beliefs. We're kind of a Northeast New York City mindset. We're really not as much of a DC metro mindset. So those kinds of things I just want to see done in the department as it progresses.
Yeah, and just to kind of paint a picture, because now we're talking about today's Christiana, and that you're the chief of, which is an incredible feat. But the department itself, you're talking equipment-wise. I mean, we talked about manpower, but what are we managing as equipment outside of the EMS, the fire side? What do we have in house?
Apparatus?
Yeah, apparatus.
1, 2, 3, 4 engines. 3 trucks, so one spare truck. We have a tiller that we use as a rescue, and then we have the tower, which is our frontline structural truck, and then we have 4 engines. Newer Seagrave, a couple of Pierces, and
where I was going
Reserve.
with that is the growth of the company, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not just the manpower, but it's also the staffing, and then being able to provide more services, right? Because you have a robust role.
Right.
Typically, every time I've been there, you have plenty of guys in house to at least staff an engine, a truck, and
yeah. So the engine and truck staff 24/7.
okay.
And then as we get manpower in and out, we'll staff another engine.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have to think for you, there's that feeling of, you're probably doing a lot of home response as the chief if it's something significant.
On duty. So we do one chief's on duty.
Oh,
all the
you
time.
do? Okay. Okay. I got you.
So like today, Battalion Chief Shanahan's where he's the duty chief, so he covers
Okay.
everything.
I
So I was
got
telling you
you.
about that run we had earlier.
Yes. Right.
We got. I was on the way here. We had to get dispatched for a trench, which is kind of rare for us. Trench rescue. So they put this whole big assignment on it, and the battalion chief went. Our battalion chief went. So I assigned myself just to this could be something significant. I'll just go down and make sure everything's going okay. And he's doesn't
Sure.
feel like I'm leaving him
Yeah.
hanging.
I get it.
Besides that,
yeah, right.
Yeah, most of the time it's just whoever the chief is handling calls. So if there's a house fire down the road from me and there's another chief on, I don't necessarily go.
Oh, okay.
They'll take care of it.
I gotcha.
What just the buff side of me wants to know. So like, if there's the engine and the truck that are staffed in the firehouse and a house fire comes out, the county is also adding units, or is it just strictly?
Yeah, so it's a pretty robust automatic aid. So the one big thing they did in Newcastle County was determine departmental strength, which just means here's what we think we can get out, and the unit can go up to 2. So even though we have, whatever, 4 engines or whatever equipment you have, it doesn't matter. It's just what you think you can get out. As far as a lot of companies are just 1, and then some are 2. So every house fire or every structural type fire is 4 engines, 2 trucks, and a rescuer sent. So that's really a 4 company or 4 department response, depending on who's counting for one. Some it's a 7 company response if they only count for 1.
Got it.
So
yeah,
a lot of companies running in and out of everybody. So
okay. And then do you guys require minimum staffing for the county?
3.
3. So every piece has to have 3 to qualify to be in service,
Right.
or available.
Well,
for the most part.
no, not necessarily, but yeah, that's the goal.
Okay.
So there's nothing really holding anybody accountable at the county level because they provide us grant and aid, but we're 501c3s, so there's really no oversight other than my board of directors to me.
Okay.
So county and the state give us money and grants, but we're really kind of running our own show. So if you wanted to run around with driver only all day, you
But
can.
it's
just peer pressure, really.
Yeah, right. I got it. Right. There's a level of expectation. Though you're going to come to a Christiana box, you better. This is what we expect
right.
out of you.
And we'll make our run cards like that. So
Yeah.
we kind of know who has people
Got
and
it.
who's coming.
And then, do you guys run common operating guidelines between all those departments since you
Yeah,
run
so there's
together?
there's a county chiefs association that kind of makes some of the rules. They make dispatch rules. So each company gets a vote. We'll have a county chiefs meeting once a month, and operational issues can come up at that meeting, and then they would vote on it as one company gets each vote. So if it passes by a majority, then that becomes a rule. So they have passed standard SOPs as far as first engine does this, second engine does that, first truck does this, and pretty much everybody goes along with that. You can bucket if you want to as a chief, but again, it's kind of peer pressure that, hey.
Got it.
And most guys, I mean, really, the chief side's 21 companies, so the other 20 chiefs I work with are great guys, and we get along good. And there's always going to be friction about, this, that, or the other, but there's really no.
Got it.
Everybody gets along.
And just for perspective, as Rob put it, for the buff that wants to know, which is, me, of course, and Rob, fire-wise, do you know what you're doing? I mean, I know you're doing 4,000 runs a year, but you're doing structural fires on the regular, no?
Yeah.
Do you know what that number is for?
Like on fire?
Yeah.
Around 100.
About 100 structural fires a year.
Well, on fire.
On fire.
Yeah. Structural runs, box clearance probably like,
Oh, yeah.
like 400, I think.
Got it.
Around 500.
Reported fire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. It's still a pretty tasty number.
What's the qualifier? Is it like a line's got to be stretched for it to be considered a structure fire, or?
Yeah. Line stretcher going on air.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a little kitchen the other day, like we didn't count. So it was kitchen, up in the cabinets, smoke. Somebody went to the hospital, smoke inhalation.
Yeah.
But
Stove fire.
Well, they got in, like the truck got in first, and they were in there. It's just like, we just needed a line to come in here, it was wet down. So it's like, we're
Got
on
it.
a fire.
Yeah.
But
I love that. I love it. Well, I mean, it's just an incredible culture, and from somebody that knows it from the outside looking in, it is, to me, it's one of those gems that I think more people should try to emulate, and I think you should be very proud of what you guys have built there. And just for my little bit of knowledge I have within, there's a lot of jealousy too about what you guys have built there, and for people, no, I mean that.
Well, we got a lot of advantages too. I mean, it's kind of when the Patriots had Tom Brady. I mean, we got some advantages too. Like the 501c3 is really nice.
Sure.
And the fact that I report to a board.
Right.
But there's no politicians telling me what to do.
Yeah. No, I get it.
There's no state regulations. So this is a good, one of these good bad things. No state regulations on training. So if somebody at the bus stop in front of the firehouse, I could pull that person off and hey, if I get on the fire truck. Now the liability's on us and me and the company, but there's no rules that say I have to be firefighter 1 or any of that stuff. So I know a lot of people kind of
right?
are you out of your mind? I'm like,
wow.
But it helps us be able to say, okay, we're setting a standard. Here's what you need to do.
Well,
So
you guys
you
are
can take it out the other way and go, well,
Yeah.
you don't have to do anything in here. But
Absolutely. But you set the standard, and you have a high standard at Christiana, and so this is what we expect of you.
But it puts it on the chief as far as having that, and the board of directors as far as having that standard.
One of the things that I'm just, it's a question came to mind, and I don't know if you can answer it or you can try like hell to, but there's a lot of issues in the fire service across the country. What, like, knowing what you know in this path that you've walked with Christiana, what do you think some of the things that volunteer fire companies or fire departments that are struggling can do to help them? Because I think there's just so much resistance, but like they are like a venomous snake that bites their own tail sometimes.
Yeah. It's tough. It's like if you're a come from home, it depends on your size of your area and how many people you're protecting. But I can see where places are struggling. If you're a small town, there's not that many people to come, pick from.
Right.
People are working. You can't have people in the firehouse all the time if you're only doing 100 or a couple hundred runs. It's just, I don't think it's practical. You can't afford to hire people.
Yeah.
Then you're introducing career staff into a volunteer situation.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't talked a lot about our career guys, but our career guys are like top notch, fantastic guys. But anyway, but addressing some of that stuff, I think it's tough because, like, I got frustrated in Pennsville with some of that stuff just because I had like the town over me. I'm fighting with another fire company trying to get money. I had to come from home issues, is trying to get things. Have people come up for a fire alarm at 2 a.m. It's I don't think there's any clear answers.
I think the interesting part, and from Rob asking that question to your answer, and I'm sitting here like taking it all in, and I'm thinking about New Jersey, because that's where your roots are and where a lot of your frustration stem from. And I think about our position, me personally, and I look at that. We have to answer to a mayor and council who provides the operational budget for a municipal fire department, and they're always out looking for the best interest of the taxpayer, which we are too. But they look at the best interest of the taxpayer on the monetary side,
right,
and not the safety side, right? Yeah, oh yeah, we provide you safety. Yeah, there's a fire department. Yeah, there's a police department. There's EMS. But the functionality of them could be, on different ranges of the scale, right? And to get things done, for us to go to our municipality and tell them we're having staffing issues and we need to address this, it's not a priority for them.
Right.
And then they look at the price tag that goes along with that, and then trying to get your department to realize, like, hey, we do have a problem here. Let's start talking about it instead of waiting for it to be, really bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's start opening the conversation and stop pretending that we don't have a problem and burning out. I'm 27 years on the fire department. I'm more active, I think, today than I used to be, because I have to be.
Right. You have no choice.
I have this loyalty to what I was raised in. And I don't ever want to see that not answer the call.
Right.
And so I have this like unbelievable loyalty to it but it's taking away other parts of it. I don't go to company meetings barely anymore. Right. Even training at night, I rarely get the training anymore because I'm usually working. I'm doing National Fire Radio, or I'm doing work, my real job. And so I don't even get to drill that much anymore, which is a weekly event. You know what I mean? And so that's becoming harder and harder to do.
Some of the things I think regionally is not, if you could, but it's tough with towns. I mean, as far as if you're doing, maybe you do a duty crew. That was one of those things that appealed to me, is like, if I could go up and give you 8 hours, but I know the other, 12 hours of the day, I don't have to come up because there's somebody else covering it. But you need a decent amount of people to pull that off. And, if you could do it regionally, maybe like Town A has a crew, but B and C don't have a crew right now, and Town A covers all those areas. I think that's some of the solution, but it's people working together and egos not getting in the way.
That's
and
right.
Understanding that Town A has a yellow fire truck and it's coming into your town, and you have red fire trucks, and oh my gosh, But
I think that goes before, when I said, like, how'd you put the egos in the drawer? And you said we were here for the citizens and we had to figure that out. I mean, that's
we had a lot of resistance. It wasn't
Oh yeah,
peaches and roses. It was
right,
fought along and just kept moving forward. But yeah,
on the fire side, for you, like, what was it? I'm trying to think how to put this right. What's it like in that transition of rank and like what? Or that's not the right. I just lost my question, everybody.
No, that's fine. So, all right, Kevin. So let's do this, right? Christiana, we've been talking about it a lot, and I know that's a lot of your life. I mean, almost every day you're doing something for that fire company and so on. And career, volunteer, busy. I mean, busy fire company. Talk about yourself a little bit. And I know you don't want to. You've been deflecting every personal question we've asked you today.
Because it's boring.
It's not boring. There's a Kevin Cowperthwait outside of Christiana also. So let's talk about Fire Department Training Network. I know that's important.
That's a fun
to you.
place.
Yeah. So I know that that you've several times when I've reached out to you, or vice versa, you happen to be out there. So I have to think that you're out there quite often.
Yep.
Probably not as much as you'd like to be, because I know it's a fun place.
I do almost. There's a couple I don't go out for class-wise, but as much as I can go out, I go out. So how it works is Jim's like, if Jim needs help, I go out. Because he's got guys that are local, so if he can cover a class with local guys, it just benefits him rather than having me come all the way from Delaware.
Right. How did that all come about?
Well, a lot of things, is like anything in life, other people help you accomplish things. So I met Bob Pressler, Chief Pressler,
Sure.
and Chief Lombardo volunteered at Christiana. So they got me involved. And it's like, hey, want to come out and help? I'm like, yeah, sure.
I want to circle back to that conversation,
So
but go ahead. Yeah.
when I went out and helped, and I just got involved that way. And over the years, I've just been, more and more involved.
So
I retired, and then I
Yeah.
had more time to go out.
Sure. So talk about that a little bit, like the experience there, and what, like, for somebody that doesn't really know what FDTN is or what to expect. I mean, I've heard it coined the Disney World of firefighting.
Right.
Is
So
it?
it's guy who runs it is Jim McCormick.
Yep.
He's retired lieutenant out of Indianapolis, and he had a vision for doing training. And there's tons and tons of knowledgeable guys out there. Probably in the 40s. I'm trying to think of a number of people out there to make the place run. But so he does container-based training, which just means that he built a bunch of props out of containers, and he runs several classes a year. Different themes for each class, and you just go out there and participate. And so he does like engine 1, truck 1, engine 2, truck 2. So that's kind of skills based, and then you do fires at the end of the 3-day period. And then there's one called combat. So combat's a 3-day class, 6 different skill stations. In the morning you do a skill station, in the afternoon you do a skill station. Next day it's a different one, you rotate around. There's one called combat where it's 4 battalions, so 4 engines, 4 trucks, 4 chiefs. You get assigned a piece of apparatus, and you go to fires each around the whole place. So he's got a big complex out there outside of Indianapolis. Yeah. He has like a strip mall one. He has a 5-story building. He's got a commercial building. He has a ranch with a basement, like a townhouse, 2-story townhouse. So there's all these different props, and he has different scenarios and different skills we can do in each prop. So that's the crux of it. But
what was your first impression going? Because I gotta be honest. Like Jeremy said before, we got to work out before we go there. I am excited, but I am very intimidated about
going out there. For me, it was like being
there.
a pro, because it's like, what in the world? 'Cause you're just trying to learn everything.
Yeah, right.
Because there's different ways he wants things, different thing you want things done, and But I took, probably took 5 or 6 classes before I went out there and was helping out too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you send people from Christiana out there?
Yeah, absolutely.
You do.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation? I mean, obviously you work there, but it is a must for everyone.
Yeah. Camp's fantastic. So camp, they do 6 different skills, which is forcible entry, and he has a whole forcible entry. There's 8 doors in this container. You go outward opening and inward opening doors, and then he just ups it up. So you start out, a lot. You can see everything. Then it goes to the point where you're on your knees because they have a fire in the back and it's smoky and you're like pitch black. So you do forcible entry. You do a basement fire. You do search and VES is one of the stations. Survival and RIT. So both of the survival and RIT ones are fantastic. And then I was trying to think of the last one here right off the top of my head. I can't think of it right. Forcible entry, search, basement. Okay.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
Doesn't
listen, but I think it should be stressed, though, the reality of this training.
Yeah, it's very good.
This is not your local fire academy with a propane
No, it's
prop
live conditions.
Or a couple pallets. I mean, this is legit.
Yeah, live conditions and doing your skills under live conditions. Yep.
So I talked to a gentleman a while back who went there because he felt that he didn't receive the training he needed to be a good fireman.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, I saw what FDTN was. He said, I wanted to get out there. He said he got there, and if it wasn't for a career fireman out of some southern, I think Texas, Dallas or something like that, he said, I probably wouldn't have made it through. He goes, my training did not prepare me for that, and those were training fires.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations like that with a few people that have been there, and they can't say enough about it, but it is a hell of a program.
Yeah, it's very nice. And you do, so you do company officer training too? I just took that. I went out for the first time, helped out with that one this year, and that was fantastic. I mean, highly recommend anybody who wants to do company officer stuff.
Yeah.
Can you take that class?
And
it's
this
not
is
a lot of fire. It's There's some fire in it, but it's a lot of good experience, learning. People that are teaching it are fantastic.
Yeah.
So.
And this is no nonsense. I mean, this is, you're there and you're working.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can't wait to experience it. I do want to reach out to Jim and introduce myself to him. We texted back and forth, but haven't spoken yet. But I'd like to do that because I'd love to get out there and feature it and show it off.
Yeah.
I think people need to know it's there and what it offers because I think it does bring tremendous value to those that go.
It's a fantastic place. Jim's really done so it's,
Well, it's growing like leaps and bounds, right? Or it has.
It's addressed, so when you do the combat, you're getting actually a physical address, and you respond either, one engine, one truck, or some fires are 2 engines, some 2 trucks. You get physical address, you respond, and operate as you would operate here. You pull up, there's the fire, there's the smoke, take care of it.
How often are classes? Because it's not. Is it year round or is it like?
It's year round.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
He takes the summers off because it just gets too hot. And then the winter's off. So our last class is in the second week of November, and I think we start up again in April.
Okay.
Yeah, so the winter's off.
Very cool. Well, I definitely want to reach out and certainly make that
but
relationship.
if you're interested, just like Google, for those at home, if Google FDTN, he's got some great videos on there, kind of shows you what we do.
For sure.
And like I said, top quality instructors from all around the country.
Yeah.
Fantastic guys.
Yeah.
Like I put on that little thing I sent you, like I help out, because I really don't instruct there because the guys instructing there are like top notch,
Listen, regardless, I mean, being a part of helping and crafting and shaping the guys that go there. I mean, you're certainly instrumental in that. I mean, that's, it speaks to who you are and how much you love it. I mean, I did, I mentioned it before, and I'll say it again, like the quick couple times that I've been at Christiana and spent some time with you, just seeing how you conduct yourself and carry yourself and how you talked with the men and women there, and then seeing your fireground presence, it was fun to be a part of.
Yeah.
And you could see your passion for the job and your love for it, and so it's refreshing. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Christiana-wise, for FDTN, we sent I think 30 guys. So we did a crew of 15 went out for 3 days.
Oh wow.
Drove out.
Yeah.
And then as they were driving back, another crew was driving out.
Wow,
and did
that's
another
cool.
3 days. So we did 6 days of kind of a Christiana program out there, just in the different props and all. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. Were you there with them?
Yeah, I was there all 6 days. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
And we kept the firehouse staffed, the whole time. So
Well, you listen. You could do that when you're
challenge
running
there.
fires and you got tons of people. I mean, I'm very interested in the program, and I'm curious, because it's so foreign to me about how you were able to pull this off. Because it's just, to me, in my world, it's hard to understand, but I can understand how it works. It's just, I would love to see how we could make it work. You know what I mean? And
the career guys are essential. I mean, we get, there's 5 per shift.
it's the backbone, right? Like
Right.
they're there, they're getting the apparatus out.
There's a career app captain and career lieutenant every day.
Right.
So they're kind of doing the board. Now the volunteer volunteer officers are there too, and they're doing the board. So it depends on who's there. But I always say the board because the board's kind of the crux of who's where, doing what at the time. But those guys are the backbone as far as making sure we have enough people in the seats.
How do you manage that relationship between career and volunteer? Because when I was there the couple times, it was pretty seamless. Like
Everybody gets along great.
Yeah.
There's always a little friction or whatever, something stupid. But
But do you contribute that to the level of clear expectations
yeah,
and a level of proficiency?
yeah.
And
Everybody's expected the same. It doesn't matter if you're getting paid or not.
That's right.
So everybody's expected to do
Yeah. Well.
the job and do
Same
the
job, right?
things. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's huge too, because that's I got to see a diverse group of people come in when I was in PG, and it was always, like, as long as you did the job, most like, I don't want to say we never had any problems in Hyattsville, but like we had very few problems in Hyattsville. Like we had great career staff, but I remember I asked one of the guys once, and I said, hey, like, what's it like on the south side? And he's like, and he sent me down to a place where I could go see it, because I truly wanted to learn about it,
Right.
just to understand perspective, and I couldn't believe it. Like, it was like pissed off cats in a bag. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, I rode the night, and I said, I'm going back to company 1.
Hit back at the 1.
Good luck, guys. But yeah, that setting that expectation is huge, because like I think the other side of the problem is, when it comes to finding solutions for responses, and they talk about career staffing, somebody's always worried about something there.
Yeah.
And like, I hate the friction of it because like I remember where I started, so I
Right.
don't ever want to be in that position.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
But like you have to set out the expectations, or else you're going to have a problem. And I know a lot of people. I see a lot of failures because it seems like they put the cart before the horse, where they'll hire career staffing without maybe a paid administrator or somebody to help guide that process or who's dialed in.
Yeah.
But like, do you have any thoughts on that? Or
No, we've always gotten along great with everybody as far as we're very selective who we're hiring. We're taking a look and we kind of know who we're hiring before we hire them. So then the guys have always meshed. My career assistant chief, his name's Dennis Godak. Dennis has always done a huge priority on making sure everybody's getting along. So he's kind of running it from his side on the top as far as, hey, we're not here to fight. We're here to get along.
An operation like yours isn't going to allow it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't, right? Because then it calls into question everything that you've done and you're
Right.
doing. And so that's got to be clipped very early on
Yeah.
before it gets any, cancerous, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, what's next for you, brother? I mean, Christiana's keeping you busy. Anything else on the horizon, or with
Nothing on the
Christiana?
horizon. Very content in life.
Enjoying retirement, going to fires,
Yeah.
and life is good.
Yeah. So I can't do it anymore. I mean, it's just age. Age will be my closing.
You got plenty of time left,
No,
brother.
so.
You're young, man. You're young.
I'm not that young, but
Yes, you are. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for joining us here. And, I really hope that, we did our part today to share some of your story, talk about Christiana and how important that is to you, and so on. But I truly appreciate you making the trip up to spend some time with us today.
no, I really enjoyed it.
And,
I really enjoyed it.
yeah, I'd love to have you back. And, frankly, I'd love to try to get back down to Christiana soon. And I'd love to see maybe do some type of story on the orientation, the ride along, and the
Sure.
and the school
Yep.
that you guys do, because I think that to be able to put that out there in an organized media piece for you guys also would share and spread the word about how you guys do it, and it might help other departments that are having similar struggles, if
Be
you
happy
will,
to.
at one time. Yeah, so we could talk about that. I'd love to be able to do that, and so on. And hopefully one day maybe I'll ride down there. So
Sounds good.
but yeah, look forward.
Everybody's welcome.
Yeah, I love that. If people are interested, Chief, where can they find you guys, and how do they get in touch with you?
It's just Christiana Fire, ChristianaFC.org is our website. You can get us on there.
Social media and so on,
Yeah,
and then
yep.
look up. You guys, I know you do post on your social media when you guys are doing when ride-alongs have to be completed
Yeah,
before the
yep.
the orientation class and
Chief
so on.
Shanahan runs that, and he's pretty on that. So if you, I'm not really sure. I think it's ride along at ChristianaFC.org. I'm not really.
We'll take your word
I
for
don't
it.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
Go on social media. Listen, if you're listening
go
to
on
this
social media
podcast
and you'll
on any
find us.
channels, you'll find them.
Yeah.
Christiana, Delaware.
If you found us, you can find them.
Yeah, right. But Chief Kevin Cowperthwait, thank you for joining us today, brother. I
Thank you,
appreciate you. I
Jimmy.
appreciate
Thanks,
your
Rob.
friendship.
Thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
Thank you. And for everybody tuning in, thanks for listening to another episode of National Fire Radio's podcast. We'll be back at you next week with another episode. Take care. Be safe. Talk to you soon.